The Yankees lost the World Series opener last night. You know that if you stayed up late, but they are giving New Yorkers something to cheer about. The game may have added $15.5 million to the city's coffers. That's according to an estimate by the New York City Economic Development Corporation. We are joined right now by that group's chief operating officer, Tokumbo Shobowale. We are so glad to have you with us here in the studio. Thanks so much. I guess we shouldn't even bother to ask you if you're a baseball fan. Don't want to slant your reporting here. But you say $15.5 million goes into the city's coffers, even though the Yankees lost. How is that possible?
Well, obviously, there are a number of visitors who come to the city. So the economic impact really has two large components. There's a direct component and an indirect component. And the direct impact encompasses two things. First, it's all the spending associated with the visitors. So there are tens of thousands of people who visit the city to watch the game, to play in the game, and to report on the game. So there's hotel spending, there's restaurant spending, there's entertainment spending, there's merchandising goods that's associated with that. So that all comes into the city's economy. Second, there are a number of workers in the city who work only because there's a game. There's roughly $900,000 in salaries for the security guards, the concession stand workers, et cetera, who work in the stadium as part of the game. And there are also indirect impacts as all of those funds flow back through the city's economy as those workers spend on other goods and services in the city.
Tokumbo, I want to ask you about this figure, in excess of $15 million, because there's 8 million people who live in New York City proper, and 20 or more if you include the environ.
Right.
That's like going out, each person in New York City going out and buying a little tin of yogurt, you know, for $1.69. It doesn't seem to me like it's that much money.
Well, these figures don't include the spending of New Yorkers. This is really incremental spending, so people who are visiting New York City who wouldn't otherwise be here spending money, because you could argue that New Yorkers spending money is money that would have otherwise been spent, so that's not included within that figure. Though there might be additional spending, obviously, if you or I go out and celebrate with our friends at the bar. That's not included within that $15.5 million figure.
What about the fact that this year's World Series is, you can make the argument, somewhat local, meaning that Philadelphia is within commuting distance? I mean, does the city of New York miss out? Because maybe if you're coming from Philadelphia, you don't really need to stay in a hotel room, especially if you're trying to save money.
Well, because it is the World Series, many of the spectators aren't even from either New York or Philly. People come in from all over the world. I mean, you have Matsui, for example, who's Japanese, has a huge following. So you really have spectators who come from all over the country and all over the world, regardless of who's playing in the game. But honestly, Philly is far enough away that if you're coming in for the game ends at midnight, not a lot of people are going to drive back down the Turnpike for 2 hours in that kind of traffic. So you do get overnight stays regardless.
Have you done studies about whether or not, and you sort of alluded to this, whether it's just shuffling money around it, meaning what if, let's just say, your average lady was going to buy a dress, instead she bought, I don't know, Yankees tickets and a shirt or something like that. I mean, that's still sort of local economy. Does that really, can you really put that in the plus column?
And again, in that $15.5 million, we don't include any spending by local residents. That's really all visitors to New York City and the salaries of workers who wouldn't otherwise have earned money because if they weren't a game. So any spending from the local resident for you or I who are going out to the bar is not included in that $15.5 million.
What if the Yankees win? What kind of windfall could the city see?
Well, there's the ticker tape parade and kind of the general celebration. And, you know, part of this is you can argue about displacement, but in a down economy, there is consumer confidence. And people, having a winning team gets people emotional, excited, and open their wallets to spend money they might not otherwise spend. So there's a lot of spending associated with the ticker tape parade. And then, of course, all the merchandising that happens that the Yankees are able to sell and other merchants in the city are able to sell.
And how, you know, obviously the Yankees have won something like 27 times, or they've been to the World Series 27 times. Is there any one sort of matchup that sticks out statistically to have been the best bang for the buck for the city?
Unfortunately, we don't really have figures that are calculated in some way that go back to the 1920s, so we don't have that kind of data, unfortunately, to support.
All right. We thank you, though. In the meantime, Tokumbo Shobowale, he is joining us there, talking a little bit about baseball, and, of course, he is from the New York City Economic Development Corporation.